Good morning, or a good afternoon for those of you in the East. I guess good early afternoon for those of us in the Midwest. I was, of course, coming to you all live from my living room for months after months, but I was just saying to Ella, I think we're probably 3 or 4 months now back in the office for all of these. So 3 or 4 months of getting to see at least part of the office for some of you back here at corporate. Bethany, how are you? Bethany joining us from sunny Minnesota, never probably coming back to the office again now that she's up north. Who else do I have? Anyone from GRA, Guaranteed Rate Insurance? Another group that used to be able to have a watch party in the office that now has been having to join us remotely with everyone. Hello. Any first time folks? People that decided this was the topic, or you're fairly new, you were like, holistic health and wellness. I need a little of that in my life. Ashley, welcome. Tammy, first timer. Oh good, Robin's here from GRA, I love it. Tammy, representing Florida. Rachel, are you a first timer, or you just decided this was it? Oh, Christy, first time. Perfect, well good, I'm glad that you're all with us. I'm going to give you all a little bit of kind of the tips of the trade, and then I'll quickly recap just as we're getting started here in just another minute or so. If you haven't yet gotten the printout or the handout, I didn't attach it today to the calendar invite update. So if you need it, it is within the handouts, like within your go-to window. There's a handout that you can take notes along the way or use it to kind of keep yourself centered to what we'll be hearing and listening from today. So if you haven't gotten that yet, additionally, I'm going to go off the screen here in just a moment and I'll introduce our speaker. I'll be manning this chat the same way that you're sending us questions and answers, as well as our speaker will be able to interact with you there as well. I know we don't usually have that, but she will be able to interact with you through the chat as well. She's going to, of course, be focused. So if you have questions, we don't want you to forget them. Feel free anytime to send in your question, and then we'll actually hold for questions at the end and take them all together. But in the meantime, we don't want you to forget it. So feel free to interact throughout the chat. I see lots of first timers who are getting into the chat. Even if you're a veteran, if you're Bethany and you've had perfect attendance and been on all of them, or Barbara Scalera, who's been on all of them, feel free to make sure you're getting yourself acclimated with the chat so that you can interact and answer questions as we go, and make sure you get that handout. But without further ado, I want to invite Reena Vokoun to join us back on. She is the founder and CEO of Passion Fit, best-selling, award-winning author and a TEDx speaker. You all know we love those TEDx speakers keep us all engaged the way that we like to interact. And a spokesperson, a certified health and wellness expert. She has a ton of focused information around fitness and nutrition and how to stay both, not that being your full-time job, how do you remain a professional woman if that isn't your full-time job and still keep yourself healthy and able to be focused. So I know that you're coming to us live from San Diego, and we're happy to have you on here. I'll go ahead and let you take it from here, Reena. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. Thank you so much to all of you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. I think this is a topic that all of us, myself included, need at this time. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you all today. If you could go to the next slide, please, Ella, that'd be great. So just to give you guys a little idea of what we're going to cover, again, as Lizzie mentioned, I'm Reena Vokoun. I'll do a quick introduction slide in a second, but before that, I want to do a couple of poll questions that you guys can put right into the chat question section, and then we'll get into the current landscape that we're all facing with COVID-19. We're going to talk about healthy stress versus unhealthy stress and how you can tell the difference between the two, because it's not always obvious. We'll talk about getting organized and productive, because productivity, believe it or not, is a big part of wellness from a perspective of managing stress. We're going to talk about exercise, one of my favorite topics, and why movement is so important. We'll talk about nutrition and why what you eat really matters, why mindfulness in my mind is mandatory and it's not meant to be another to-do item on your list to stress you out, but quite the contrary, it's going to be there to help relieve your stress, and we're going to talk about how. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of sleep sleep, which is another one that kind of sometimes gets overlooked and is so important for overall wellness. Claiming time for yourself. And I use the word claiming intentionally because no one else is going to do it for us. We'll talk about behavior change and how to keep them simple so that you can set yourself up for success. And then just some key takeaways, self-reflections, closing thoughts, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. And then we'll talk a little bit about my book giveaway as well, which I'm excited to share. So without further ado, I've got a couple of questions. I think some of you were putting in where you were joining in from. So if anybody else wants to put in where you're tuning in from across the country, I think I heard Minnesota, I think I might have heard Florida. So feel free. Oh, somebody from San Diego, that's great. I see Georgia. So feel free to just put in where you're tuning in from. It's always fun for me to kind of see all over the country where people are coming from. So you can put that in the chat. Oh, I see Minnesota, Indiana, Kansas City, great. I'm a longtime Midwesterner, born and raised in Wisconsin, but I've lived in California for over 20 years, but it's always near and dear to my heart. So I love seeing people from the Midwest. I see Michigan, Colorado, Chicago, Texas, awesome. Southern California, keep them coming. It's Huntington Beach, all this is fun. Wow, what a great group from literally both coasts and the Midwest. That's fantastic. So the next thing that I want you guys to put in, another poll question for you, is what has been the most challenging for your work-life balance during the pandemic over the last year? What are the things that have been hardest for you when you think of your work life and trying to balance that with your home life? So don't be shy. Feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And looking here, sleep, yes, still being active, that's a big one. Working remote, I know that can be challenging for people. The day never ends, yes, we're gonna talk about that. Staying focused, yes, I'm a mom, so I get it. When children have been home with virtual school, the isolation, the loneliness, absolutely. I think we can all attest to that, being in quarantine, staying positive and not sad, yeah. Staying fit, stress, feeling drained all the time. Excellent. These are really, really good. Finding time to cook healthy meals, keep them coming. I'm just scrolling through these. I hear you guys. These are all really, really real, right? And so this kind of ties into the next question, and some of you are already hitting it because the two clearly go hand in hand, right? Work-life balance and your health and well-being are intertwined. And so my next question was, how has the last year impacted your health and lifestyle most in terms of fitness activity, eating habits, stress levels? So I think a lot of you are already covering this, which is great because they all go hand in hand. So feel free to keep putting those in. I have one person saying they can't hear me, so I will let Lizzie and Ella focus on that. I just wanted to call that one out. Feeling isolated and lonely, yeah, okay. Well, thank you all for sharing all of this. We are going to hopefully address this. I empathize with all of you. You're not alone. And so I think the biggest takeaway that I want you to have from our discussion today is that we're all in this together. We're all going through our own challenges, and you are not alone. And there are solutions to make this a little bit more bearable. So with that, we're going to go to the next slide. So really quickly, I think Lizzie already kind of introduced myself, so I'm not going to go through, all of my trainings and certifications. I did work in the corporate space prior to becoming an entrepreneur and focusing primarily on health and wellness. It's a huge passion of mine, so I think what I want to say about that, what is most near and dear to my heart, is the fact that I've experienced burnout. I've been the stressed out working mom. As you can see, this is a picture of my family. My husband and I have both worked in tech for many years. I was with Google most recently before starting Passion Fit. My boys, they're actually a lot taller and a little older now. They're 10 and 14. But this picture was actually taken right before the pandemic. Little did we know what was happening. But I think what I want to share is that not only am I certified and trained in different areas like fitness and nutrition and behavior change and mindfulness and strengths-based coaching, I've gone through the hardships myself. So I also come to you again with a sense of empathy and allowing you to see that I've been through, the hardships too. And so I share a lot of my experiences in addition to the data and the research and the stats. So I just want you all to know that. So we're going to go to the next slide. So let's talk about this current landscape. I mean, we've all been living it for the last 18 months. It has clearly created challenges for everyone in the world, including all of the brave people that are risking their lives on the front line, that are trying to help us fight not only the original virus, but all of the variants that are popping up, especially the most recent one, which is the Delta variant. There are people that are helping to administer vaccines, and now we're talking about the booster shots and vaccines for children under 12. There are people who can't afford daily meals for their families. There are people who haven't had access to technology to continue with their work or to provide virtual learning for their children. There are people who have lost their jobs or have had to shut down businesses. And there are people who have had pre-existing health conditions, which has made them more vulnerable to COVID-19. Overall, as we all know, it has been a really stressful time in our world. And I think your answers to the poll questions show that. It has truly been hard on all of us. And I really appreciate your honesty in sharing how this has affected you personally. And again, I feel you. According to the National Institute of Health and the American Medical Association, 3 out of 4 doctors' visits are for stress-related ailments. And believe it or not, stress is the basic cause of 60% of all human illness and disease. And it can affect all of us, regardless of our age, regardless of our gender, our background, our life stage. It really touches everyone. And clearly, the stress that's been caused by COVID-19 has affected every human being in the world. 60% of Americans feel daily stress and worry, according to a Gallup research study, and 78% say COVID-19 has been a significant source of stress in their lives, according to the American Psychological Association. Pre-pandemic and now during the pandemic, we've all been multitasking mavens. We're always connected now more than ever via technology, through smartphones, texting, being on social media, being on Zoom or your go-to webinar calls for your company, emailing constantly. And I think as some people had said in the chat and the poll questions, not knowing how to turn off work. I mean, it is a really real thing for many people, especially for those of us that are working from home 100% of the time. We're often balancing our family needs and our career needs. And in the last 18 months, for many of us, it's been all under the same roof. And I can attest to that. My kids were in virtual school for a lot of last year. And with my husband and I both working remotely, trying to manage our kids in school, it was really, really challenging. And I think a lot of people can attest to that. We're also, finding a lot of change in our work environment. Some people are coming back to the office. Some people are maintaining their 100% remote work status. Some people might be opting for a hybrid approach. And I think every company is trying to figure it out as we go. And that level of uncertainty as to what your work life is going to look like and how you're going to balance it continuously with your home life, that can be stressful. For the kids, even for those of you that are parents, I know it's been stressful for kids that are, in school full time, but as we keep getting the daily emails about COVID cases in schools, especially for the younger ones that can't be vaccinated, that's a level of uncertainty that we're facing. As women, we are continuing to face gender equity issues in the workplace. Many women have had to leave the workforce because they haven't been able to balance their childcare and their work responsibilities, that just breaks my heart. But in general, we are stressed. Yes, we are spread thin, and we don't necessarily have enough time to take care of ourselves or our health. But I think all of us are in need of support and empowerment. I know that was a lot of heavy stuff that I just mentioned, but there are some ways that we can cope, and we can not only survive this, but even find a way to thrive. And that's why we're all here today. So how do we cope? How do we get out of survival mode and protect our physical and mental health? Next slide, please. So let's start with healthy stress versus unhealthy stress, because it truly is critical to know the difference so that you can act accordingly. Everyone, as we all know, experiences stress in day-to-day life when doing things such as taking tests at school, taking on a new project at work, playing a competitive sport, or simply even exercising our body. Feeling a little anxiousness or stress in these situations is completely normal and expected, and can be best managed by channeling your energy into these activities to overcome or burn off that stress. Big life events such as moving, which my family and I have gone through. We left Silicon Valley after 20 years and we just moved to San Diego this summer. Marriage, having a baby can also cause stress. Traumatic events like this pandemic we're all living through, or a death in your family, can also have a huge impact on your stress as well. The key in managing your stress levels in these various life situations, big and small, is to pay attention to how they are affecting you physically, mentally, and emotionally. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, if you are temporarily feeling your heart rate increase, your breathing get faster, or your brain working harder, that is normal as your body goes into a fight or flight mode. And you can use that stress as a motivator to perform at your best in that moment. However, if stress becomes chronic and long-lasting and affects your sleep, your moods, your blood pressure, your digestive system, or causes major anxiety and depression, then there could be, or most likely there is, a very unhealthy amount of stress to deal with. And it's important to deal with it right away, to get in touch with your doctor or your healthcare practitioner and start to address it so that it does not turn into a bigger issue later. So today we're going to talk about the tools you can use to manage stress, big and small, healthy and unhealthy. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with productivity because you are all professional women. This is a workplace setting, but we're going to talk about personal and professional lives because, as we know, more so than ever now, that the two really go hand in hand. But I think it's important to note, according to Cornerstone and a study done by Gallup, that work overload actually decreases productivity by 68% and costs businesses $300 billion per year. I think we've all had that feeling of there just aren't enough hours in the day to complete all that we have to get done, both in our personal and our professional lives. But productivity, if we can learn how to really apply it to our daily lives, can be a great component of wellness and a personal and professional development tool that can really help you manage your stress and anxiety and actually help you be more successful on the job and in your personal life as well. So it's important. I would say the first thing right now is communication, because we are all kind of, I think some people said you're feeling a little bit lonely and isolated, and everyone is going through their own personal challenges and struggles with what's happening in the world, even within our own homes and within our own families. So the more we can focus on communicating, talking to our bosses and our management teams and our peers at work, talking to our spouses or significant others, or children, or other people in our household and family about how we're feeling. If for those of you that are potentially planning to come back to the office, or you want to stay working remotely or adopt a hybrid approach, it's important to understand what the environment is going to look like. If you are coming back to the office, what are the mask wearing mandates, social distancing guidelines, vaccine considerations, COVID testing considerations, and how is that going to look if you are going to still work 100% remotely? Does that affect your job or your progression in the company? So it's good to, if any of those things are on your mind, to find ways to have those open conversations and ask those questions. At home, you want to make sure that everyone's doing okay. How are the kids doing now? Many of which are back in school full time after, a year of having this virtual and hybrid setup. It's affecting our children more than we might even realize. We as adults have never had to grow up in a pandemic. This is the first time in our lifetime we're experiencing it. So I always think about my kids and their peers and the younger generation and what they must be going through. So have those open conversations with your children or other young people in your life that are students. Have that conversation with your spouse or significant other. And everyone should also feel safe to talk about where they need boundaries at home, where they need time for themselves to just process or to decompress. So that's a really important part of productivity, in the sense that you're having those open conversations and you're setting expectations between work and home life and what's on your mind. It's also important to make weekly to-do lists, and I don't mean that in a way to make you feel stressed, because if anything, what you want to do is pare down that to-do list. I am a recovering perfectionist. I'm a type A personality, and I have years of creating these long, unrealistic to-do lists at work and at home, literally like 30 plus things on my list. And I would often set myself up for failure. No wonder I didn't feel good if I couldn't accomplish all those things, because I wasn't setting myself up for success. So through my own experiences and training in the areas of time management and strengths-based coaching, I have learned, and I want to share with you, pick no more than 3 to 5 at the most of your top revenue generating, needle moving, strategic tasks that you need to get done for work. Something that's really going to move that project forward or elevate your work to the next level. If you can focus on those high priority items each day, you're going to leave that day feeling successful. And anything else you get done on that to-do list, maybe the longer to-do list, it's icing on the cake. But if you get those most important things done, you're actually progressing forward. You're being productive with your time, and you're going to feel a lot better and less stressed at the end of the day. The same thing goes for your personal life. If you have a couple of really important things that you need to get done, maybe it's making that doctor's appointment, or calling that contractor to finish a really important house project, or connecting with your kids and taking them out for ice cream because they've been stressed about school. Those are priorities. So if you can prioritize those things, then the rest, again, will be icing on the cake. And if you didn't get to them that day, you can get to it the next day or the next day. Some of my favorite, I do actually like the old school version of writing my to-do list in a notebook, but if you're looking for more online tools and apps, Todoist, Evernote, and Wunderlist are a couple of my recommendations there. I also think it's important to stay focused, but also take breaks. So when I worked for Google, I took a class called Managing Your Energy and Not Your Time. And what the focus was is how your energy ebbs and flows throughout the day. Some of us are morning people, some of us are more productive later in the day or maybe midday. So you want to kind of act according to your energy levels as much as you can. And we can't always control the team meeting that's scheduled right after lunch when we're ready to fall asleep. But as much as you can manage your projects and your day and your energy, the better off you'll be. And you want to take breaks every 90 minutes because research has shown that we're not going to produce our best work. We're not going to be thinking as clearly if we try to just power through the day. And believe me, I've done it. I've tried to do it, and it doesn't produce your best work. You're not as clear, you're not as creative, and you're clearly not as productive. So take those breaks every 90 minutes, even from, those of you that are still working from home, myself included, and get up, go grab a glass of water, go outside and get some fresh air for a few minutes. Call your mom, whatever you need to do to just get away from your work so that you can come back refreshed and ready to keep going. And then again, another 90 minutes goes by, make sure you take your next break. It's also important to set boundaries, right? Especially during these challenging times. In my opinion, your calendar can be one of your best friends. So use your calendar to block time for both personal and professional needs. And again, have that communication with the people that you work with and the people in your family so you're setting expectations ahead of time. Reduce the number of meetings. I know there's a lot of Zoom fatigue or GoToWebinar fatigue that people are facing. So if you can solve an issue over an old-fashioned phone call or over an email, try to do that. Now, I do think team collaboration and seeing each other face to face, even if only on screens right now, is important for team building and just really making sure everyone is working well together. So you do have to have that. But if you can balance it with, not everything has to be a video call or an in-person meeting if you're back in the office. So find ways to create that balance of things that you can solve more quickly and things that you can do in a meeting if you need to. Now, if you do have to have a meeting or a video call, try to set a clear agenda, have your objectives laid out so that the meetings can start on time and end on time and run more smoothly and efficiently. And don't be afraid to say no, obviously with your manager's permission. If there are certain projects that are falling on your plate that maybe aren't mission critical, maybe right now your focus is preparing for Q4 and the end of the year. So if there's a project for the new year that can wait until early January, if you have that permission from your manager, go ahead and you don't even have to say no per se if that feels too stringent, but just let that team know or that person know that you'll be able to pick that up starting in Q1 because you've got other priorities that you need to focus on for Q4. So leverage that and learn how to say no in a way that doesn't close doors, but just kind of keeps doors open for the future. I also think it's important to plan a reward system for yourself. For those of you that are parents, when we were potty training our kids when they were younger, we would give them stickers or M&Ms and little, incentives to, get the behavior that we wanted out of them. Well, who's to say that we can't incentivize ourselves? It doesn't necessarily have to be stickers or M&Ms, but maybe it's just getting to go shopping and get that top that you really wanted to get, or maybe it's just a chance to go and grab lunch with a girlfriend or something, just some way to reward yourself if you've accomplished the goals that you had set for that week or that month, both at work and in your personal life. So do what you need to do so that you can keep yourself motivated to keep going. And it's important to reward ourselves and acknowledge when we're doing a good job. And it doesn't always have to come from somebody externally. The most important person it needs to come from is ourselves and within. And then having a growth mindset. This is a concept that I feel very strongly about. A lot of my professional development training has been in this area, and it's to enjoy the journey of your work and all the key learnings that you have along the way and the way that you're growing professionally, instead of just obsessing about the outcome. Now, I've been in sales and business development, and I understand, for those of you that are in that area as well, when you have revenue pressure and goals and targets that you have to hit at the end of every quarter, I understand that, and I've been there. But I have found that if I'm only focusing on the end result and the numbers that I have to hit, it makes me more stressed out. But if I learn and I grow and I'm engaging with my team and my clients to get to that outcome, I just find that it's a much more rewarding experience. And I do think that inevitably the results that you are desiring and that are expected of you will come. So that is it for productivity for now. We're going to move to the next slide and talk about exercise. All right, so I have been teaching fitness classes for more than half my life since I was in college, and it's something that's just near and dear to my heart. It's something I've done on the side, and I've seen firsthand in myself and with my clients how much it can really impact you physically and mentally. But the truth is, almost 80% of US adults don't meet the weekly guidelines for physical activity, according to a Centers for Disease Control study. And obviously, being in the pandemic over the last year and a half has made that even more challenging for many people. And I know many of you mentioned that in the poll question, so I hear you. But the reality is, we as adults need a combination of cardio, strength training, and flexibility work for 150 minutes a week if we're doing more moderate activity, or 75 minutes per week if we're doing more rigorous activity. And how you divvy that up is completely up to you, whether you're doing 30 minutes a day or an hour a day or 10 minutes here and there. The amount of time that you're spending at once is not what matters. It's what you do over the week, and it's your level of consistency every day. Doing something 10 minutes at a time each day is actually going to be more effective if you're consistent with it than doing a hardcore boot camp workout, for 2 hours, and then you don't do it again for another week or two. That's actually going to be harder on your body, and it's not going to give you the benefits that you desire. But exercise is so important, and according to the American Heart Association, it helps with, as we know, weight management, but also stress management, disease prevention, and physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual health and well-being. And while we all know these things, right, it's important to remember the multifaceted benefits that movement can give you in your life on those days when you're not feeling motivated. And believe me, we've all had those days where we just don't feel motivated. So you're not alone in that. But I think the first step is to find times of the day where you are going to be most intrinsically motivated to fit some sort of movement or fitness into your day. Whether you're a morning person, whether you're somebody who likes to work out after work at the end of the day in the evening, maybe you like to go for evening walks with your spouse or your kids, or maybe the lunchtime or another time of the day is going to work better for you. I think, again, being remote, in some ways that gives us more flexibility, but I know in some ways it's made it harder because people aren't sure of how to turn off work and turn on their personal life, and the two are just blurring together. And that's where I do think, one, again, finding those times that are just most realistic for you, where you're going to naturally be more motivated, and then using, again, one of your best friends, your calendar, to block that time. Block it around your meetings, your high priority work that you need to do, but just make sure that it is also one of your high priorities for the day. Now in this pandemic world, it has changed the fitness industry, I think, for good. I think people are always going to want to go back to studios and gyms and have that in-person community. It's a big part of my company is creating and building a community, so I understand the importance of that, and I plan to also maintain that. But at the same time, Online apps and videos and live stream classes are here to stay, and thank goodness for them. I have kept my community going over the last year and a half. I moved everything online: wellness retreats, fitness classes, workshops, coaching and consulting. And I'm really thankful for that, because it's allowed us to keep the community together, and it's allowed us to motivate each other and help each other through those ups and downs of the last year and a half. So I would highly encourage you to take advantage of, the online resources that are there. Some of my favorites are Pop Sugar Fitness, Beachbody, Daily Burn. I have my own Passion Fit YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, there's over 100 free wellness and workout videos. And obviously the rise of Peloton and Tonal and a lot of the home equipment with being able to take live stream classes or recorded classes have also become really popular. And if that's not your thing, that's okay. If you just need to get outside for a good walk or hike in your neighborhood, that counts too. If gardening outside relieves stress and moves your body, that's okay. I think the key again here is just to find what's going to work for you and try to build it in, and remember how much it's going to help you physically and mentally. I'm a huge fan of wearable devices. I have my Fitbit. My husband actually works on the Fitbit product for Google. So I think it's fantastic, because it's like having a little mini wellness coach on your wrist. It allows you to track your steps, track your heart rate, your sleep, your stress levels. I mean, it is fantastic to be able to give you those reminders when it can sense physically what's happening in your body and how that might be affecting you mentally as well. And then aim to get, I know we all hear about 10,000 steps per day, and luckily we're a little bit more active now than we were when we were all really in lockdown and in quarantine. At that time, I would tell my clients, in addition to your workouts, try to just walk and get more steps, because we're all getting fewer steps than we would in normal circumstances. So just move your body, and just remember that it will make you feel much, much better. All right, let's go to the next slide where we talk about nutrition. All right, so according to the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, typical diets in the US far exceed the recommended levels of sugars, fats, refined grains, and sodium. And this was pre-pandemic, right? But this is something that is still, it's prevalent, and it is an issue. And according to a study over the last couple of years by the Centers for Disease Control, over 42% of US adults are obese. And this number is probably continuing to grow, and I bet we're closer to 50% now after the last 18 months of the pandemic. But the reality is, and yes, obesity can cause other health problems, so that is serious. But I think what's even more important in managing that, or even if you don't have obesity, just knowing that what you eat and what you put into your body actually impacts how you feel and function, and it will affect you in your personal life as well as your professional life. There's a lot of research studies out there that say food is medicine. And I know that doesn't necessarily sound very enticing. It almost sounds like, great, it's just another thing that I have to do. But I think if you can find a balance of, yes, knowing that food is medicine, food can completely impact how you feel, how you function, and how your body operates, but then find ways to also enjoy your food. I'm a huge believer in self-awareness and education, not self-deprivation. So I'm a certified nutrition specialist, and my focus is very much on moderation and balance, and allowing you to get 80% of all of the nutrients that you need: organic fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats, whole grains, but allowing that 20% of the time to enjoy the things that you want to indulge in as well. Because the more we deprive ourselves, the more we just crave it, and it's going to be counterproductive to our goals. But I think it's important to also just look at food in a way that is there to support you and help you and make you feel good, and again, function well. Drinking plenty of water and staying hydrated is also really important. Practicing portion control as well. I love this healthy eating plate. I keep it on my refrigerator as a reminder for myself, my kids, and my husband of what a healthy eating plate looks like. This is actually from the Harvard School of Public Health, and it gives you a breakdown of vegetables versus fruits versus whole grains versus healthy proteins and even the healthy fats, and you can kind of see what those portions could look like. So feel free, you can grab it online if you want to print it out or download it as well. It is a fantastic reminder, and it's a very balanced approach. I think that's another thing that I find really important. There's always going to be diets and fads out there. I know, 16-hour intermittent fasting has become really big, and keto and paleo diets, and drinking protein powders and kombucha, and there's so many things out there, and I'm not negating any of them. I think everybody has different needs and different reasons for what's going to work for them. We all have different body types. We have different pre-genetic dispositions, and different food restrictions based off of food allergies. Maybe you're lactose intolerant, or you have an intolerance to gluten. So what I can say is talk to your doctor if you do have any food restrictions or things that are, foods that are not sitting well or affecting your body, but then customize and work out an eating and nutrition plan that's going to work for you, that allows you to still enjoy the foods that you love and that you crave, while for the majority of the time eating the foods that are really going to be best for your overall health and wellness. So you can prevent or manage things like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and more. And at the end of the day, I find that moderation, as I mentioned earlier, is the key. And I love the Mediterranean style of eating, which is recommended by the Harvard School of Public Health, because it is the one that's incorporating all of the major food groups. It's inclusive of everything. And I think anytime you cut out, like completely cut out a major food group, that could be very detrimental to your overall health. So that is nutrition. We're going to move on to the next slide where we talk about mindfulness. And I know we have roughly 11 minutes to go before we get into Q&A. So I'm going to try to go through these next sections fairly quickly without compromising the information for you guys. I think the biggest takeaway that I want to give you for mindfulness is that, and this is according to a study with the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, even 5 minutes a day can create positive results. And while only 14% of the US population is currently using tools like yoga and meditation, I am hopeful as they continue to become more mainstream in our culture here in the US, it will become a bigger percentage of people that are using it. I am first generation born Indian American, so I actually grew up with yoga and meditation. I learned it from my parents and grandparents, and then I've gotten several certifications in the area over the years, but I understand that it doesn't come naturally to everyone. Not everybody grew up with that in their culture. And so what I want to say to that is that mindfulness doesn't have to be sitting and meditating for 30 minutes a day on a mat with your eyes closed in silence. It could mean going out for a hike in nature. It could mean listening to really calming and relaxing music. If you do like to practice yoga, or even in your workout, you can incorporate mindfulness. When I teach fitness classes for my clients, I actually dedicate, as part of the cool down and stretch, 5 minutes of mindfulness practices where we literally lay in Shavasana and we focus on our deep breathing, we focus on centering ourselves, and it's just a little something I put at the end of a workout so that people can incorporate it into their day, and it's that 5 minutes. But when you are able to tune out the noise and the chaos of the outside world. We know there's a lot of chaos right now, and it just gives you a chance to just tune into yourself and notice how you're feeling and think about what you need in that moment, and just try to breathe and focus on your body, focus on your heart rate, and just center your mind. It is a really, really great practice. Some apps that I really love are Calm, Headspace, and the Deepak Chopra apps. If any of you are Fitbit users, they have a premium. With Fitbit Premium, they have so many different apps that you can use. 8-minute meditations, 5-minute guided meditations. I actually, when I don't have time to do them for myself, I will literally play a guided meditation for 5 minutes from my Fitbit app while I'm brushing my teeth. And I just find that something is better than nothing, so find what works for you. It doesn't have to be stressful. But I think at the end of the day, if you are prioritizing some form of mindfulness, whether it's first thing in the morning, right before you go to bed, or throughout your day, where maybe you just take a couple of deep breaths, or you take a second just to think about what you are grateful for, that is mindfulness. It will help you to manage your stress, be of service to others, be centered, have perspective, and just be more grateful. Because I think it's hard sometimes in this situation we're all living in to remember what we're grateful for. But when we break it down to something that's so simple, it just gives us perspective and just makes life a little bit more easy to bear in these hard times. All right, let's go to sleep next. Next slide. Thank you. So the CDC has called insufficient sleep a public health epidemic. So we're not only living in a pandemic, but now we've got this epidemic of sleep. But it's true, and it's affecting 50 to 70 million US adults. People do have sleep disorders. I, at the height of my burnout, developed insomnia. And still to this day, if I am stressed and I'm not managing my stress, it affects my sleep. You know, it's important to note that sleep loss can negatively impact your quality of life, your relationships. It affects your memory, your performance, your cognitive functioning. It is so important, and I've learned from having experienced insomnia how important it is to get control of your sleep. The recommended amount of time is 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Some people might need more. I wouldn't recommend getting less. You know, I know people say they can get away with 6 hours or 5 hours a night, but really you're doing yourself and your body and your mind a disservice. One thing I've also learned from my own experiences with sleep issues is if you want to get a recommended 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep, if you only allot for that much time, for example, if I say, okay, I only want to get 7 hours of sleep tonight, and I go to bed at a time and wake up at a time within those 7 hours, usually I end up getting less because you have to account for the fact that you might have to get up to grab a glass of water or go to the bathroom, or you might wake up in the middle of the night because you're stressed about a presentation the next day, or you're worried about the COVID cases going up in your region, and you might be tossing and turning. So in order to still get the recommended amount of sleep, you almost want to give yourself a bigger window that allots for the waking up and the tossing and turning. And I have found that to be really effective for me and for many of my clients as well. So if it means you have to turn in at 9:45, so be it. You're going to feel that much better in the morning, and you can create a habit. And we'll talk about that in behavior change in a little bit. But it's also important to practice good sleep hygiene. So creating a peaceful environment in your bedroom by thinking about the color of your walls or the type of bedding you have. And I'm not saying you have to go repaint your walls or anything like that, but think about those things. You know, think about the coloring, you know, the types of sheets you have, the bedding you have, the temperature in your room. Screens or no screens, that's always a big debate, right? Do you keep your phone on your nightstand or not? Do you have a TV in your bedroom or not? I have made a practice over the last probably 3 years where I no longer plug my phone in on my nightstand because those notifications and the blue light is so distracting, and it's so easy to just grab your phone and start scrolling through Instagram or answering a work email at 10:30 p.m. But again, that could just be really detrimental to your sleep because then you're wound up and your brain is so overstimulated that it's either hard to fall asleep, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's hard to go back to sleep. So what I've been doing, and I've been recommending this to my clients as well, is I plug in my phone outside of my husband's master bedroom. And I have, you know, it's not too far where I can still hear my alarm in the morning, but it gets me to resist the temptation of being on my phone at night. And it forces me to read or do something that's going to be more calming, maybe do my meditation at that point or my mindfulness practices. And it really does make a huge difference in sleep. So I would say find what works for you. Everyone's going to be different, but those are some considerations to make. And then the biggest thing is just to stay consistent. Have, you know, similar wake up times and bedtimes. And obviously when you travel around the weekends, if you want to go out and have a really fun night in the city, it's going to change a little bit, and that's okay. But I think if you can maintain, again, back to that 80-20 rule, most of the time you're consistent with your sleep times, you know, that is going to just help you to get into that good sleep hygiene and hopefully have more quality sleep more often than not. Oh, and the last thing I will say about sleep that is also effective is to have a notebook on your nightstand or something where if there are a lot of things that are in your mind, if you can write them down, it just gives you permission to sleep now and deal with it later because you've accounted for it. You know it's something you're going to, you know, deal with in the morning, and it's not just lingering in your mind and keeping you up at night. Okay, so claim time for yourself is our next slide. And this is all about self-care. I know that has now become such a buzzword and probably an overused word, and I don't want it to lose its significance because it is so important. And as I said in the beginning of the presentation, I use the word claim very intentionally because no one knows what each of us is going through on a day-to-day basis more than we do, right? And even your own family, everyone else is just, we're all just trying to get through the day. Everyone has their own stresses and worries and to-do lists. And so unless you take the time for yourself, it's not going to happen in most cases. You know, I will say my husband is really good about noticing when I am just on the verge of burnout, and he'll say, you know what, you need a break, go take a break, go work out or go for a walk. I've got the kids, you know, and I try to do the same for him, but it's not always easy. And I think that's where you have to be able to communicate. It goes back to that communication, and tell your spouse or tell your kids or tell your boss, like, you know what, I'm going to take next Friday off. Or, you know, at home, if you are just racing, you could say, hey, can you pick up the kids today, or can you start dinner, so that you have some time to do whatever it is that you need to do to recharge your batteries. According to WebMD, many people, especially women, are less happy than they were 40 years ago due to, believe it or not, lack of time for themselves. But in order to be the best employee, the best manager, parent, significant other, family member, neighbor, what all the different roles you might play in your life, you have to take time for yourself. And again, this is another one where I speak from experience, where I come from a family of women where we always we take care of everybody else but ourselves. We take care of the kids and the spouses and the extended family. My mom does it, my sister does it, my grandmothers did it, but we've had to unlearn some of those things. And I've even had to remind my mom to take time for herself, because when we feel depleted, we're not going to be useful to ourselves or anyone around us. So just remember that. And it doesn't have to be, you know, something big. I think it is in, you know, this time where we've all been under one roof, it's really hard to make time for yourself because you're with your family 24/7. But if it means you go into your closet and just reorganizing your closet or listening to some music, if that's what it is that you need to do to get away from everyone in your house, do it. Or take a walk in your neighborhood, or call a girlfriend, take a bath, you know, work out, whatever you have to do. I think it's important just to make that time so that you can have that space, have that opportunity to clear your head, and just be better for yourself and those around you. And if you do sometimes need to have your family be there, incorporate them. I incorporate my kids into my mindfulness practices, and even my husband, where we'll do an app and listen to it together before bedtime, or we'll all go for a hike together or exercise together. My YouTube channel has a couples boot camp workout, a mom and kids yoga workout. I have a family fitness video. So there's lots of free content out there where you can incorporate your family into your self-care regimen if you can't take the time on your own, or you want to incorporate them. So feel free to check that out, and just remember, it's important to claim time for yourself. And finally, our last slide. I know we are out of time here, so I'm just going to zip through this. Behavior changes are things that can be daunting to people, and we often set ourselves up for failure by creating too big or lofty of goals. So the biggest takeaway that I want to give you here is to keep behavior changes very simple. There was a study that was done by BJ Fogg, who is a PhD at Stanford University, and through his research, he found that if you make a very small, manageable change, and then you positively reinforce that change so that you're motivated to do it the next day, and you keep doing it and reinforcing it, if you can do that for up to 66 days, that's about the time it takes to make a behavior change stick and make it a regular part of your daily life. So pick something simple. I am going to go, you know, walk in my neighborhood and take some deep breaths and get that sort of exercise and mindfulness all in one for 10 minutes a day. Or I'm going to start adding one piece of fruit to my breakfast every morning, or I'm going to add one vegetable to my dinner in the evenings, and just make that one simple goal. Again, do it. Tell yourself, hey, I'm proud of myself. I went for that walk today. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And just keep associating positive feelings and feelings of success every day so that you keep going. And before you know it, that 66 days is a little over 2 months. Then you will hopefully have that become an established part of your routine, and then you can add the next behavior change and the next one. You don't want to do it all at once, and you don't want to create too big of goals, but if you break it down like that, you'll be amazed at how much it just becomes second nature. And this is especially important for health and wellness. So I just wanted to leave you with that. And if we can go to the next slide, just some key takeaways here. We talked about the landscape. We know it's tough. We know it's challenging, but we want to make sure that we're, again, paying attention to healthy stress versus unhealthy stress. We're getting organized and productive. We're moving our bodies every day in ways that work for us. We're eating nutritious foods and remembering that how we and what we eat really affects how we feel and function, but we can still enjoy some of our favorite treats as well. Knowing that mindfulness in many cases, in my mind, is mandatory, but again, it's not meant to stress you out. It's just 5 minutes of your day that you get to do something for yourself to really tune in and get centered. Remember the importance of sleep, practice good sleep hygiene, and try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Claim that time for yourself because no one's going to do it for you, and keep your behavior changes simple. All right, and so a self-reflection question for you all on the next slide. And you don't have to answer this right now. I want you to actually take some time to think about it. What is one thing, back to keeping behavior changes simple, we're just picking one, that you can start doing today for your well-being that will carry you through the rest of the pandemic, however long this goes, and even beyond that. So think about that. What's something that's going to set you up for success so that you can keep adding more things later. And next slide. One of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi, it is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. So just remember your health. My TEDx talk was why wellness is a secret to personal and professional success. And I wholeheartedly believe it. When we really tune in and focus on our health and our wellness, it can just really help us to soar in other areas of our life, both personally and professionally. And that is where the real wealth comes from. It's just to be healthy and to be happy. I think that's what we all want. So remember that. And then the next slide, we're going to be doing a book giveaway for 5 lucky winners. I have been working for over 2 years to write my first nonfiction book. It's called The Wellness Empowered Woman. I'm really thankful. It was it was a bestseller in 8 different categories on Amazon on the first day that it launched, and it recently just won a Mom's Choice Award. It is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I put my heart and soul into this book. I was writing it through the pandemic as well, and it just launched on June 17th. So I'm excited for some lucky winners to get a complimentary copy of it. But if any of you want to also check it out, feel free to go to, again, Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And then finally, if you want to get in touch with me, if you'd like to work with PassionFit, if I could help you in any way, here's all of my contact information. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over.
Well, don't go anywhere yet. You don't have to turn it over to me. Stick with me for a minute. Hang out. Let's answer some of the questions. So thank you so much. I always love the group that prioritizes an hour in yourself to join. I think this is a really great first step for those of you saying, I'm struggling to connect with people. I think we did a lot of today telling and showing how much you're not alone and how many people are going through the same thing. So please get yourself involved where you can here, since you're already spending so much time at work. Just to invest this hour in yourself and thinking about your health and wellness, I think is a great first step. So big high five to all of you who, again, put that hour into this today. Yes, virtual high fives. A few tactical things that people need. They needed you to repeat the list apps. I know I heard you say Everlist, but there were others. So for those of you asking, which list apps did she like best? There were a couple of people that would like some additional information, if you can share those again.
You got it. It was Wunderlist, Todoist, and then I think it was, bear with me, I'm going to my notes here. I had Todoist, Evernote, and Wunderlist are the 3 that I would recommend.
Perfect. Yes, there were a couple that were not learning from Lizzie. She said I can only have 3 lists. 3 things on my list. I was like, wait, maybe she meant 3 No, I don't think she meant 3 lists. She meant 3 prioritized things on our list. So I'm going immediately to try to prioritize these lists of what should be on those lists. Perfect.
And it's cool. So if you don't want to use an app, I actually love motivational notebooks. So mine says she believed she could, so she did. And I look at that every day, and I put my to-dos in here. So you find what works for you. Lizzie's got her style, I've got mine. If you want to use an app, these are my recommendations.
I think lots of different ways to tackle that part. There are quite a few people. I love so many of you who said, listen, I can barely get all the things I need to get done. And if you can kind of, I think there's some folks still wondering, like, but where can I set boundaries, or where do I put this in? Can that little break, is that little break I need every 9 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10? Can my exercise go there? Like, where do I actually create or find this time? I know you said claim the time. Like, where do they where can they start for some of these little simple changes?
It's a great question. So what I would do is start by looking at your current calendar, if you keep a calendar, and your current schedule. That involves your work meetings, drop off and pick up times if you have kids from school, when you got to take them to soccer practice, when you have to go see your in-laws. Like, look at the current setup of your life and then think about, okay, where are times in the day that I can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes for these activities that I need to do, whether it's working out, whether it's practicing mindfulness, whether it's practicing self-care, and start to block that time in your calendar. And also remember when it's most realistic, right? Like, if you need to go pick up your kids from school, you're probably not going to go try to budget in a big long workout where then you need to shower, whatever it is. But take advantage of the fact that right now we are working remotely. And while I know that's daunting and that almost creates these blurred lines of work and home, you actually think of it as like a clean slate where you can kind of write in what you need to do. You don't have commutes, many of you, right? You don't have the usual stuff in your day that you did pre-pandemic. So think about, while you're home, how you can build in these things. But keep in mind, if you are going to need to go back to the office post-pandemic or whenever you're back, where you could fit those in. But I think putting it in your calendars, once you kind of analyze what your current setup looks like, and then going and communicating to the people that need to know, and then just doing it. And again, if it's only one of the things, if you're like, I can't take on eating, healthy foods and adding mindfulness and adding movement, it's too much. Totally get it. Take one thing. Maybe it's just, I'm going to spend 5 minutes a day just focusing on some deep breathing or listening to a good song. Start with that. Do that for a while until it becomes habit, and then add the next thing. You don't have to do all of this at once, because I know it's daunting. My focus by nature is holistic, and I'm sharing as many of the tools with you today as I can. But believe me, when I work with my clients, I don't go at them with all of this at once, because it's not realistic. So I work with them on one step at a time, and I would hope that you would be able to do the same.
I love that. There were a couple of you who also chatted things in, like Stormy said, yeah, I needed to start involving my kids in my workouts or my walks, or it made me decompress to walk with my pet or walk with my pet and my kids, so that at least I got some space. And I feel like you had mentioned on your YouTube channel that there are kid yoga with parent, there are couples things, so that if you are women by nature, many of you saying you're multitasking more than ever before, using that time to both tire those kiddos out. Those of you who are saying, I need some peace and quiet in my house, excited that school's starting and that people are heading back in, but trying to, I love that Stormy said the same thing you did, trying to find ways to put those things together where they fit kind of into their existing life. So I also wanted to recommend, you did mention that you've had a bit of community and people that have been able to connect throughout. I think some of you, Bridget has very specific questions about vegetarian foods to be able to stay healthier, and ensuring that we're finding, I think, some sense of community to provide things to each other. So either emailing you or reaching out to your website or newsletter would get them involved in some of what you're sending out monthly, if maybe that's part of the simple thing I'm going to do for myself today, which is surround myself with people who are also trying to do the same.
Absolutely. Please feel free. The Passion Fit community is open to everyone. It's a global online community. I am obviously trying to develop a local community here in San Diego, but I have clients all over the country and all over the world. So you could subscribe to my newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter that comes out, and every week I do a wellness challenge and give some tips. I have a private Facebook group as well. I have live stream classes. So even if you're not here in San Diego, you could work out with me during the week. So just get started in whatever ways that work. And if you need support from our Passion Fit community, by all means, it is open to all of you. So just go to passionfit.com and see what might appeal to you and how you want to get started, and reach out to me. My contact info is again there. I'm happy to help and bring you into the community.
Oh, perfect. I think there are some questions that are getting so specific that I think not only do you likely have the answers, but you likely have people who are also sharing what's worked for them, because I do think you're hitting on something that's really important. You've been teaching workout classes for all of these years, and many are saying, I just need to get up from my desk more often and go to the bathroom and like walk and get some steps in. I'm so far from thinking of being in a class. So I think that the idea that there could be others that are joining the same kind of community could be really a positive move for so many today. Sin, I want to quickly answer your question. You said, Lizzie, you're a GR employee and it seems like you're always doing things. Tell us what your day looks like. Do you step away for an hour, for once an hour? I actually would say that I'm not great at stepping away every 90 minutes, but I too am an Apple Watch wearer, and I do need the reminder that, like, breathe, the mindfulness reminder that pops up every so often. I set timers for myself to only do things for certain times. I also, I think if you all talk to my team and you know many of the people who I work with, I do actually set very good boundaries for both before and after work hours. I have a long day in between, but I get in the office early and I protect that time to do things before people are in here pulling my day away. It's getting myself organized of, like, what are the things I need to focus on today? And then once I'm done for the day, I'm done. I try really hard not to. I do my highest and best use during the times I can, and being a mom is my highest and best use sometimes. Being my wife is being an employee here and being a manager to others is my highest and best use. So I really do try to only do what I'm doing while I'm here. I'm not as good about doing the breaks. I sort of see those sometimes as like making my day longer, but I do certainly do my best to, like, keep myself like, again, I hate to use the word like bound to my watch or bound to my technology, but I do try to put some boundaries. Someone once said to me, if you say your priorities are these, look at your calendar and your bank account and see if those are in line with what you say are your priorities. Do you spend your time and your money on the things that are your priorities or what you say are your priorities? And so for my bank account, I don't know that I've done so well, but for my calendar, I do try really hard to stay disciplined to those things. So I'm just like all of you, trying to balance what it is that we can. And certainly these hours are always the best and highest use of my time. So I appreciate that you have all joined us. I know we are right against the hour. Again, Reena, thank you so much. 5 of you, 5 lucky book winners, will be being notified shortly by Ella. If you need to reach out, we'll leave this slide up for a moment. If I didn't get to your question and you needed other lists, we will post the recording as well as the handout with this as soon as we can get it all wrapped up for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Reena. We appreciate your expertise. Thank you all. Have a great day. See you next time.
Thank you.